So Jordy, you got a pretty solid setup for the night.
I do.
Whose is this?
Mine's a
Jerry's
blow-up
never
mat.
been camping before. The straw mat, it just lives in the van. I don't know why. I've never gotten rid of it. The futon I found up in the attic. I'm sure it's fine. Jerry brought his own sleeping bag. Jerry also brought his 49ers blanket.
Go Niners, dude.
Go Niners, bro.
Sick, dude.
A few of us made the trip up to Downieville, California for the weekend to ride bikes and camp, and since I had never been before, it was a good opportunity to talk with Jordy and Ariel about some of the racing that takes place in Downieville and how the unique aspects of that racing might affect bike setup and suspension setup, and even how those setups have evolved over time.
So we're in Downieville, home of the Downieville Classic. It started off as an XC race, then it turned into an XC or a downhill, I think. And then it turned into like you had to do both to get the overall. I mean, it's hard, and it's gotten harder over the years. It's big mountain riding. And the downhill, like, it's not a downhill, it's an XC race, but it's like mostly downhill. But it's long, it's 45 minutes if you're pinned. So that's hard. And there's some climbs in it too. It's kind of cool that way. It's like you have to pin the downhills, but you also have to pin the climbs. So you can't really half-ass either one of those. And the cool thing with the race is you have to ride the same bike. They want you to ride the exact same bike, same tires, same everything, don't change anything. Obviously some people fudge that a little bit, but for the most part people are riding the exact same bike downhill and cross country, which is rad. Like, you have to make it last. So you have to be able to climb fast and descend fast. But it's a very unique place, and it's a unique race.
Yeah, it's definitely a unique race. I think when I first came, now we have like proper enduro racing, in the States and all over the world in the World Enduro Series. But 15 years ago, that wasn't, maybe it existed in Europe a little bit, but it really didn't exist here, and it really wasn't in the mainstream yet. There was cross country and there was downhill, and bikes were starting to evolve, and people were starting to ride faster, kind of on backcountry-ish trails, and pushing those a little bit, and wanted to be able to take the abilities of a downhill rider into longer trail downhills and trail rides. And the bikes were evolving, and that's kind of what Downieville was one of the races that helped usher that in, I think. It was a little bit of a time where people were a little lost on like where, what that middle ground of mountain biking was going to be. This race kind of was one of the things that kind of springboarded that or brought it to the forefront and kind of helped change mountain biking into a little bit of what it is today.
Like, this place is weird. People ride everything from downhill bikes to like we saw hardtails today, which is gonna punish you. But we're all on trail bikes now. You can easily ride an XC bike, and XC bikes win every year. Like, there's no way around it.
Man, it was a real weird game getting equipment set up for this place. Like, you knew you had to pedal really hard and go uphill like you're a cross-country racer, but at the same time you're gonna have to smash this thing as hard as you could like a downhill race.
So setup for Downieville, I think the biggest thing is don't flat. So tire choice is huge. And now that a lot of people are running inserts, tire inserts are probably the way to go, like an XC Cush Core.
Tires are always important, not getting a flat tire. Like, that's the name of the game. It was like, how fast and light can I make my bike and not get a flat tire? As close as it is, we're only 4.5, 5 hours from Santa Cruz. It's way different. The Sierras here, you have a ton of rock, and it's dusty, a lot of decomposed granite, and the dust is really hard on the suspension, actually. So it's a pretty good place to come and test suspension. You really notice like seals drying out, and you have a lot of dirt ingestion and stuff like that.
Again, everything about setup is balance. So as things point downhill, you want to bring your body up. Fork pressure, bar height, whatever. Downieville is like low grade, but incredibly fast. So you want to get that balance right, which means probably slightly softer fork maybe even slightly softer shock, just because it's all like small to medium hit. There's not like huge hits. And it's all about carrying speed. So you want the wheel to get out of the way of all that small bump stuff that kind of hangs you up. You feel it kind of pulling you backwards every time you hit it. It's all about efficiency and carrying speed, not all out, straight up 5 minutes of the fastest bike you can ride.
Suspension was really important for sure. I debated between coil rear shock and the weight of that versus an air shock. But we really wanted long travel bikes to be something that you could go out and like pedal to the top of a mountain. It was kind of like when that was really coming around, and we really wanted to see that work. And I think there was like a group of us, and maybe that was like as competitive as some of us were with each other in the race. Like the coming together was the common good of like, we want the industry to make long travel bikes that you can still ride up to the top of the mountain on and access trails that we couldn't access with a chairlift or a shuttle truck, you know what I mean? Or maybe you shuttled a bunch of it, but then you still had to do a big pedal to get there. But man, it was a lot more fun to ride it with like good geometry and good tires and longer travel suspension and really feel like you kind of rode that trail more like you were riding a downhill run. So I think a lot of the things that exist today, this was part of what helped usher that in. And as this thing became more popular, it did, and then it kind of morphed, and then like things got lighter and shorter travel, and you realized maybe for this course you didn't need all that, but it certainly helped bring some of that to light, I think.
I think all of this is just yet another example of how racing is at the core of everything Fox does, and how racing is at the heart of progression. So we're definitely still keeping our fingers crossed to be at some races soon, but we still don't have any exact details on that yet. So in the meantime, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.